perspective. So this is one of those experiences I had as a young woman, still at home, and see what you think. This is for me. My mother handed the ivory envelope to me as I sat at the breakfast table. The gold embossed lettering was stylized but yet restrained. My eyes scanned the dark letters, requesting my presence at the marriage of Barbara Schuer to Alan Weinschel. They were Jerry's friends, really. I had met them through him. The happy couple had known each other for 2 years and were finally tying the knot. Seemed like a good idea, since Alan had finished law school and Barbara had gotten her doctorate that spring. It's a black tie affair. I swallowed hard, thinking about my limited wardrobe. Maybe we have something in this store. My mother wiped the dishes with a faded towel, her hands red with soapy water. I'm not doing that, I puffed. I'm not wearing someone else's clothes. I stared hard at the floor, hoping my mother would leave me to solve this problem. Anytime I needed something special to wear, she would suggest wearing a customer's dress. She was confident that they'd never know, unless I happened to show up at the same event that they were at. And even that was hit or miss. Okay. If you don't want to do that, I'll ask Mrs. Drucker. You know her. She's one of my favorite customers. And her daughter is about your size. She walked out of the room, her strong voice ringing in my ears. A few weeks later, my mother returned home with a dress, wrapped in plastic, that announced fine French cleaning. Our cleaning store? Never. We used bags we got at the discount, usually overruns from other dry cleaning stores who refused them. Nothing too good for our customers. Here, try this on. She undid the plastic and handed me something that was last year's style. I took an immediate dislike to it. The top was a splash of blue and green flowers, banded by a blue satin ribbon at the bodice. The long A-line skirt was white linen. It was awful, and I knew it wouldn't work. This was such a fancy wedding, and Jerry, who was my boyfriend, was the best man. I wasn't in the wedding party, but I knew I had to wear something very fancy. This wasn't it. Try it on. I'm sure it'll be fine, she said. She sat on the couch and waited for me to undress. I took off my pants and my top and slid it over my head. It fit, just as she said it would. I walked around our living room, getting the feel of it. My voice trembled. Aren't you not supposed to wear white to a wedding? No, she said. I never heard of that. You can wear whatever you like. She walked around me, eyeing the dress from each angle, as I stood like a stone, with slumped shoulders and frown. Anyway, it's not all white. Look at all those colors. She reminded me as she pointed to the blues and greens. No, it's not completely white. I turned and blurted out, I'm not going to wear it. It's got to be something else, not this. I took off the dress and quickly got dressed. Of course you'll wear it. There's no good reason why you shouldn't. My mother slipped the dress over the hanger and carefully pulled the plastic bag in place. Mrs. Drucker's daughter wore it to a very fancy wedding. She raved about how beautiful she looked. Maybe you'll look beautiful too. The next week, I was in the back of our white Chevy Impala, slouching so as not to crease the dress. Since Jerry was in the bridal party and had to assist with whatever men do in a bridal party, my parents had agreed to drive me to the synagogue all the way out in Great Neck, Long Island. My mother sat in the front seat and insisted on reading the directions out loud, though my father prided himself on knowing where he was going. It was part of his driving ethic, never to ask for help. His calloused hands clutched the steering wheel as she droned on, unbidden. Those directions aren't worth a damn, he said. What the hell can't they give you directions that will help you get there? It's such a fancy wedding, they should give you better directions. I glanced at my watch. It was almost 3 p.m. and the ceremony was due to start at 3:15. At the fourth gas station, My mother checked the directions yet again. We were close, only 2 miles away. I heard a sigh and watched her shoulders lean back into the front seat. It would have been easier if Jerry had taken me. My father pulled the car into a circular driveway and stopped at the 2 large glass doors with the perfectly manicured shrubs on each side. Mercedes, Jaguars, Cadillacs, and a few Rolls Royces, each with their own uniformed drivers, were parked in a nearby lot. I heard strains of organ music as my eyes scanned the multicolored glass windows. "We'll leave you here." My father checked his watch as the car idled rough. My mother's parting words were, "Keep that dress clean." I patted down the wrinkles from the seat belt strap and found the entrance to the sanctuary. I opened the door and slipped into a vacant seat in the last row. My blue shoes poked out from the dress as I sat onto the brown leather seat, hoping it wouldn't squeak. Seconds later, the bridal party entered from the same door. The ushers wore white jackets and black trousers and black cummerbunds, as did the groom. The bridesmaids wore street-length dresses of pale yellow. The maid of honor, Alan's sister, wore a gauzy dress of yellow with tiny embroidered rosebuds. Even the bride's mother and her mother-in-law were dressed in street-length ensembles. How could they? The bride was a vision in white. Her long dress drizzled with pearls and lace. She floated down the aisle on the arms of her parents until she met her husband-to-be. The ceremony went on for a while, the rabbi intoning in his nasal voice something about the bride and groom, but I was unconscious. I began to sweat and felt moisture gathering under my armpits. The few tissues I had came in handy as I mopped the perspiration from my forehead. Finally, the vows were spoken, the rings exchanged, the wine drunk, and the glass was broken. A cultured l'chaim rippled through the guests. No one knew I sat in the back, thinking of how I could hide my own long white dress. The receiving line was very long and moved very slowly. I had tried a feeble escape to the ladies' room, but I ran into Betty, George's wife, who insisted that we get into line to extend our good wishes. What could I say? It would be impolite, and besides, I'd hear about it later on. Betty was sure to tell George, who was sure to tell Alan, who was sure to tell his parents. Back in line, I had lots of time to review everybody's attire. Young women boasting of wealth and grooming were a sight in shades of pink, magentas, pale blues, and golds, each one never going below the knee. The only one wearing a long dress, and white included, were the bride and me. My face grew red, my bare arms were flushed, and my legs were wobbly as I neared the new bride and groom. The sets of parents were fine. They barely noticed me as I said my congratulations. And then the ushers and the bridesmaids who laughed and flirted with each other. No problem there. My heart began to pound as I gave Alan a hug and a kiss. But after some laughter and words of relief that the ceremony was over, he was cool to my problem and passed me along to Barbara. She took my hand in hers. Her skin felt smooth and chilled. "So good of you to come," she said in her pre-rehearsed way. "And your dress, it's so wonderful. I love the color."